Hey all, welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited to have you here today. As many of you know, I am a nutrition coach. I absolutely love fitness and working out and being strong. I'm a mom of two, live on a farm in small town Iowa, and am a normal, everyday person that really just wants to help everybody feel a little bit better, feel a little bit more confident in their skin. I'm really striving to bring a variety of guests and topics on here to help you get more of a gauge of what you're struggling with. Find other people you can connect with, find other roots of solutions so that you can get to root causes of what you are struggling with, get to solutions so you can get to feeling better all the time. No more band-aids and less doctor's visits and things of that nature, and just having a better quality of life. So I'm really thrilled to bring today. I had MacKenzie on here a few months ago. She is an absolutely wonderful person. She has a background, she's an ex-gymnast. She had gone through a ton of gut health issues in her past, which led to hormone issues and all kinds of things that come along with that. And so she went to school, went and got a degree to help with her gut health and hormones. And now she helps coach other people through that. She helped heal my gut and my hormone issues as well, all naturally. I did not have to do anything with gynecologists or endocrinologists in order to get my hormones back online and get things feeling better and normal again. And it was all thanks to Kinsey. So I'm really excited to have her here and can't wait to dive into all kinds of amazing topics with her for you. All right, guys. So we are here with MacKenzie. This is her second time on the show, which is really awesome. The show has grown considerably since last time, and I still have people reaching out about her all the time. So I figure we may as well do a recap and a review and bring her back on. So welcome back, MacKenzie. Do
Thank you. I'm
you
super excited to be here.
Yeah. Last time we were just talking beforehand, and I don't think that she went over exactly like her full history, like what got her into like such a focus on gut health and training and nutrition. And so do you want to just sort of go over and start with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up a competitive athlete my entire life. Like I was in gymnastics from the time that I was two, always had hopes of, obviously, when you're young, you have hopes of going into the Olympics and things like that. When you realize that, it's like, no, we're going to go for college gymnastics instead. So always had the goal of going to be a collegiate gymnast. My freshman, sophomore year of high school was being recruited by a ton of top D1 schools. And then my sophomore year of high school came back from a gymnastics meet in Florida. My sister had the flu. I got it the next day, and what we thought was the flu progressed into it was a snowball effect over the course of 6 months where I just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. And no one could really tell me what was going on. And I was almost like a human pincushion for 6 months where I went from being an elite level athlete to sitting in a hospital bed, 5'5", 92 pounds, soaking wet, unable to essentially like hold up my own body weight standing or on my hands. And anybody who knows me, you guys know like my fun party trick is I can just walk on my hands all over the place. And I was so sick and was so overlooked for so long. And over the course of 6 months, like I said, I probably ended up losing 32 pounds. I was 5'5", 92 pounds soaking wet, and they admitted me to the hospital and we're like, hey, you have gastroparesis, which essentially means partial stomach paralysis. It is something that can affect anywhere from your stomach all the way down to your large intestine. And over the course of the last 12 years since being diagnosed with it, it has progressed from something that it was affecting just my stomach to then stomach, large intestine, and colon. But at the time that I was admitted to the hospital, I had a resting heart rate of like 38. I had several times where doctors looked at my parents and were like, I don't know if she's going to make it to see tomorrow because my body was so unhealthy. And so they put me on a feeding tube, basically to try to bypass my stomach and try to restart it. And they're like, look, we're going to keep you on the feeding tube and in the hospital for 2 weeks. And what was supposed to be 2 weeks ended up turning into 6 months because any infection that you could have possibly gotten, I somehow managed to get infections that only like young children would get. I somehow ended up getting those. I ended up being allergic to the tubing in my face, so they had to put it directly into my stomach at a certain point in time. And when I was having conversations with my doctor and several doctors, I was like, look, what is the reality of like me having any kind of normal life? And they looked at me and they're like, Kenzie, your life is going to be in and out of the hospital moving forward. And I was like, no, like I'm not okay with that. It was like I've had one goal my entire life of being a collegiate gymnast. Like, what is the reality? Like, is it even realistic for me to be able to do that? And they said, we've never had anybody that we've worked with personally that has gone from where you are now to going back to being a competitive athlete. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna beat the odds. Like I'm gonna overcome whatever it is that you guys tell me that I have to stare down and try to overcome. And I'm gonna be that one person that beats the odds. And so after 6 months in the hospital, I was released from the hospital, had my feeding tube pulled, which usually when you get a feeding tube put directly into your stomach, you very rarely have it pulled. It's something that when it comes to managing gastroparesis, you are basically like either live on internal feeding. Thankfully, now their technology has progressed substantially to where you don't have to have internal feeding anymore, but you can do it orally. So we'll have to dabble with that every once in a while. But once I had the feeding tube pulled, tried to get back into gymnastics and collegiate athletics and or worked to get to collegiate athletics. And after a year and a half of extra workouts, extra practices, and little to no support from anybody because my parents had almost watched me die. My sisters had almost watched me die. My doctors were like, this is not healthy. Please don't do this. And my coaches were like, you're too fragile. I don't want to do anything with you. I somehow made it back, competed as a senior in high school, and got a full ride college scholarship for gymnastics. Ended up going to Lindenwood University and competed all 4 years as a competitive gymnast, ended up winning 2 national titles, 3 conference championships. And shortly after that, because I had lost so much weight from the time that I got sick to when they finally diagnosed me, I was hitting puberty at the time that I got sick. And basically, they told me I put myself into menopause because of how much weight I had lost. So from the time that I was 16 all the way until I graduated college, I had never had a menstrual cycle. And so when I graduated college, yeah, so I was 22 and hadn't hit puberty yet. And so this is kind of where it leads into the gut health and nutrition aspect of things for me is when I graduated college, like I had lived my life so structured for so long because I had someone telling me where I needed to be, when I needed to be there, what my practices looked like, how many sets, how many reps, for how long. I knew how to eat for the level of activity that I was doing on a daily basis. And then when I graduated college, I went from practicing 40 hours a week to maybe exercising one at most 2 hours a day. And my digestion all but stopped again. So I basically had to figure out how to manage my gastroparesis all over again and had to teach myself a lot because if you look into research, if you go to doctors, like I went back to my doctor and he was like, oh, here, just take this medicine. I'm like, but that doesn't do anything for me. That just is a band-aid that you're trying to slap on a problem and it's not actually fixing what the problem is. I finished college and still hadn't hit puberty and went to an OBGYN and they lost their mind and put me on birth control to force me to hit puberty at the age of 22. And I ended up gaining like 40, 45 pounds. And I was like, no, I'm not about this. It made me feel terrible. I hated how I was acting towards people. I hated how I felt in my own skin. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I am not going to be a human pincushion for another 12 years only to have them throw this medication, hoping it works, that medication, hoping it works, you trying to slap a medication on some like underlying hormonal issue that I have that I want to fix. Like I actually want to fix it from the ground up. So when I had graduated college, was working as a medical scribe in an orthopedic office and had every intention of applying to PA school because I wanted to be in orthopedic PA. Like I had always wanted to like be a part of like orthopedic surgery and things like that. Just full disclosure, gymnastics, you get hurt a lot. It's not a matter of if you are going to, it's when and how bad. So I was like, cool, I want to go into that realm. And ended up applying to PA school, and just some things didn't work out the way that they were supposed to, and ended up getting turned away from PA school. So I actually pivoted, ended up applying to school to be a naturopathic doctor. And all the while, this is when I had started working in the first form app as a first form app advisor, and ended up getting my NASM CPT, ended up getting my NASM CNC, certified nutrition specialist, got my precision nutrition level 1 all in this time. And then literally was sitting at day 1 of medical school orientation, and all I could think about were the people that I was currently working with. And the fact that I was going to have to give them up, and the fact that I didn't have to have an MD behind my name in order to help those people. I was already helping those people change their life. So luckily, the school that I had gotten into for the naturopathic medicine program had a master's in clinical nutrition program. So day 2 of orientation, I walked in there and said, I do not want to be a part of the naturopathic medicine program. I want to be a part of the master's in clinical nutrition program. I don't know how they managed to do it, but they pulled a whole lot of strings, and were able to switch me into that program. And I actually started the master's in clinical nutrition program the day that I was supposed to start medical school. I ended up graduating last June with my master's in clinical nutrition. And over the course of like the last 6 months of like working through my internship, have started specializing in gut health and women's hormones, because I don't want anybody to have to go through what I went through, and help people to find the root cause of their issues, and help people to not slap a band-aid on issues that they've been experiencing for far too long, and help them learn how to lead a healthier life and optimize their health through nutrition, lifestyle habits, through stress management techniques, whatever it may be, because that's ultimately what has gotten me to where I am. And I've dealt with dozens of doctors, and none of them could help me live a normal life. I was still sick. I was still tired. I couldn't work out the way that I wanted to. I couldn't eat the way that I wanted to. And I was working with medical professionals, and not to knock on them. There are a lot of things that I will use doctors for, but there are certain things where like getting to the root cause of an issue is way more beneficial. And that's like my drive in going into nutrition, hormones, gut health, things like that, is to ensure that no one has to be that human pincushion for 12 years and not understand what's going on.
Lady, I didn't know half that. I'm so glad you shared. My goodness, that's so amazing. So to put it out there, so Kinsey actually worked with me. So I have very personal ties with Kinsey. I have cried on the phone with Kinsey because my stomach hurt so bad and I couldn't get my period to cooperate. Like I've cried with her and she helped me. So sincerely, if you're struggling with like hormonal or gut health issues or anything like that, like I'll put Kinsey's stuff into the show notes and everything because I want you to reach out to her. She is absolutely outstanding. Um, so okay, let's see. It's been a while since we've been on here. So I guess like what is your take on like something I've been hitting on a lot lately is like processed foods, and how that can affect gut health, hormones. I mean, do you find that to be one of the biggest culprits as well?
Yeah, especially when I do get people that come to me when they tell me like, hey, I'm experiencing extreme constipation or bloating, or the opposite of constipation, where it's just like completely irregular bowel movements. And first thing I do, obviously working in the nutrition space, is assessing their diet and their nutrition. And a lot of times it's packaged, processed, like foods with a ton of added sugars, like looking at those types of things. And their diet is more than 50% packaged, processed convenience foods that compared to single whole food ingredients.
Mhm.
And a lot of times why this is an issue is like, one, those ingredients haven't been around long enough for us to understand what they are going to do in our body long term. If we take a second to even just focus in on like refined carbohydrates and added sugars, is those are types of things that feed bad bacteria in our gut. Because yes, our gut microbiome does have good and bad bacteria. You need to have a healthy balance of both in order to maintain a healthy gut microbiome. And those packaged processed foods that have refined carbohydrates and added sugars feed those bad bacteria and make it opportunistic for them to just overgrow.
Mhm.
And when they have the opportunity to overgrow and you continually are eating those packaged and processed foods, you're just giving them the opportunity to thrive. And in situations like that, you then crowd out the good bacteria, which is then leads to the bloating, leads to the constipation, leads to the diarrhea, leads to weight gain, leads to hormonal imbalances. And a lot of people don't look at, hey, if I were to just eat more single whole food ingredients rather than packaged and processed foods, it would, I'm not going to say it's going to solve all of your gut health issues, because there are some single whole food ingredients that can cause more harm than good, but it is going to change your gut microbiome substantially.
Absolutely. And that's something that I've also found too. And I'll let you explain it because you're the queen here. But a lot of people just don't even understand what you mean by a single ingredient food and what added sugars actually are and what the fact that a lot of these ingredients that are processed aren't even actual food. They're food like substances. So
Yeah.
maybe touch on that a little bit. Maybe you can put more clarification in there.
Absolutely. So when I'm saying like a single whole food ingredient, I'm thinking like, okay, did it come from an animal or did it come from the ground?
Mhm.
That is where we're going to find our single whole food ingredients, even if it's something as simple as milk. Milk is a single whole food ingredient. Now, if you're going to go for milk, go for raw milk. That is going to be way better than anything that you're going to buy off the shelf, because there has been nothing done to it. But that is where you're gonna like your lean proteins. Those are going to be single whole food ingredients, fruits and vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, legumes. All of those are going to be considered our whole food, like single food ingredients. And then we have like our packaged processed foods, added sugars. And so looking into like our whole food like ingredients, the big things that come to mind for me when it comes to gut health, and a lot of people will look at added sugars in a different way, but obviously looking at the amount of added sugar that are in that is in a certain food. So one, I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying carbohydrates are bad for your gut microbiome, because they're actually phenomenal when you are consuming the right type of carbohydrates for your gut microbiome. But it's when you're consuming a lot of added sugar. So it's like when you look at a nutrition label and it says added sugar, a lot of times they're literally just taking table sugar and they're just going to dump it on in the recipe, because let's be real, sugar tastes freaking amazing.
Mhm.
It does. Um, and second thing to that is fat tastes amazing as well. But things like butter and ghee that are single whole food ingredients that are great for your gut microbiome actually are not shelf stable. So then they're going to use hydrogenated oils and partially hydrogenated oils that are made in a lab. And you can literally see it on a label. It will say partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated. If you see that on the label, it means, hey, this was a fat that was chemically altered. And those are the types of fat that make things super shelf stable. If you go and you look at a Hostess cupcake, I'll use that one because it comes to mind, is like that thing can sit on the shelf for like 3 years and have absolutely nothing happen to it, because they're using those shelf stable fats, partially hydrogenated oils, to help keep it on the shelf and to help keep it on the shelf and tasting like the day it came off the conveyor belt. From if you want to eat it 3 years later, it's going to taste the exact same.
Mhm.
And so things like that. And then from an added sweetener standpoint, if you guys are choosing the low fat and the low carb or no sugar added ingredients, you're typically going to get sugar alcohols. So you're going to get mannitol, xylitol, erythritol. Well, I'm not going to say that artificial sweeteners in itself are bad for your gut microbiome. If they are consumed in high amounts, yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
But things like xylitol, mannitol, erythritol, those sugar alcohols actually do have, and they have been clinically proven to have a negative impact on your gut microbiome. And they do actually, like there is research to show that it kills off bad bacteria or kills off good bacteria, which then obviously gives the opportunity for that bad bacteria to grow when you are consuming those sugar alcohols frequently. So my like rule of thumb is like looking at nutrition labels. And when you look at a nutrition label, those ingredients that are listed first are the ones that are found in the highest amounts in food. So if you look at something and it says high fructose corn syrup as like the first ingredient, well, that's going to be the ingredient that's found in the largest quantity in that food. Probably not a food that you should grab. Now, that's where you also look and read through the ingredients list. How many of those ingredients can you actually pronounce? How many of those ingredients do you actually know what they are? You want to be able to pick a food off a shelf that has minimal ingredients, ingredients that you can actually pronounce every single word and doesn't have any like dimethyl and all of those types of things added to it. Because when you see that on the label, you know that it's not something that you picked out of the ground. It's something that someone produced in a lab to make it super shelf stable and very, very cheap for you to consume.
Absolutely. Okay, so something that I wanted to highlight in there. Um, okay, so clarify between because we're going to have some processed foods, right? This is life.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. We all need some convenience in our life.
oh, absolutely. Things happen. And sometimes
Yeah,
we just want a damn cupcake, and that's okay.
we do.
We just
We
need to
do.
not do it all the time. But something that I often educate on, and correct me if I'm wrong, I usually tell people to look for things that say no sugar added instead of sugar free. When it's no sugar added, is it more of like it's the natural sweetness of those foods? Still check the label. But the sugar free things, those are the things that are almost guaranteed to have those artificial sweeteners.
Oh yeah. So if you're
Okay.
looking for a sugar-free, a fat-free, they're going to add something in its place to try to give it the exact same flavor as like the thing, like the fully leaded thing is going to be. So if you look at a Coke versus a Coke Zero, the ingredients are going to be completely different. They add things to that Coke Zero to try to make it taste exactly like the Coke, minus the 56 grams of carbohydrates you're going to get in an 8-ounce serving. You're going to get 0 grams of carbohydrates versus 56 in an 8-ounce serving. How did they do that? They had to add something artificial to be able to create that same taste that sugar would create.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure we clarified on that one because those labels are
Yeah,
so damn tricky. And
I
there's
know.
always loopholes. So seriously, just get used to taking a couple minutes and look at those nutrition labels. That is
Yeah,
so key.
yeah.
Um, okay, so something else that I definitely want to touch on because you had to harp on me hard for this for a long time, is stress levels and how it affects not only digestion, but your hormone output. Like if your stress level is constantly high, what are some of the signs that you commonly see for people?
Ooh, I mean, if we're talking like gut health first,
Sure.
you are going to experience either diarrhea or constipation and or both. So irregular bowel movements is going to be one. Bloating is going to be another one. Early satiety because your stomach probably isn't digesting food in the way that it should. So when you consume food, it's like you take 2, 3 bites and you literally feel like your stomach is just a giant balloon. Frequent gas is going to be one of them as well. If you're experiencing any type of like indigestion frequently, where either you're burping frequently or you kind of are getting some amount of acid reflux. A lot of people don't necessarily take into account just how much your stress is going to impact your gut, where the number one agitator of any type of gut symptoms is going to be stress. Like for myself, I know when I'm stressed because my stomach feels like a trash can. And I'm like, cool, we need to do something here to try
Hmm.
to manage that. From a hormonal standpoint, it is going to throw off your hormones, not just from a sex hormone standpoint, but also we have to take a second to take into account like what cortisol actually does in our body. And so if you are someone that is chronically stressed, you are going to experience hormonal imbalances in your estrogen, your progesterone, and your testosterone. So maybe you're experiencing irregular menstrual cycles where, okay, they're either super far apart or they're super close together, or maybe you end up losing it all together. Maybe you have absolutely terrible PMS symptoms before your menstrual cycle, during your menstrual cycle. You have a very heavy flow when you didn't used to. Those are all going to be things like during your menstrual cycle that you are wanting to look for if you are someone that is chronically stressed, or if you don't know that you're chronically stressed, those are going to be things that you are wanting to look for. Just things to generally consider from a stress management standpoint is like, how are your energy levels during the day? Are you chronically fatigued, or do you like wake up in the morning and are you fatigued from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed? Are you absolutely wired in the morning? Are you really tired in the afternoon? And then are you wired at night? How's your sleep quality? If you're waking up 3, 4 times during the night, like you are likely incredibly stressed and your body, your cortisol levels are spiking at wrong times. Other things that people don't always take into account from a stress standpoint. How is your hair? Is your hair falling out? Like literally, is it coming out in clumps? Is it like brittle hair, skin, nails? Are you experiencing breakouts, particularly like around like your chin and on your neck, on like the backs of your arms, your like shoulders? Those are all going to be places that you want to look. If you are chronically stressed, those are going to be considered like hormonal acne places. The other thing too is like frequent rashes, because stress, and I'm sure you touch on this with the people that you work with, is like stress and cortisol are on this, or stress and inflammation are on this nasty feedback loop with one another. And inflammation has to come out somewhere. Stress has to come out somewhere. And really easy place for us to get it out is it comes out in our skin. Like, do you have frequent rashes? Is your skin super dry? Like things that people don't take into account to look at when it comes to poor stress management.
Yes. Okay. And the reason that I really wanted to touch on this is because I've had so many people ask about the Dutch test that you had me take.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would love, because I can only explain that it's kind of like taking a giant pregnancy test multiple times in a 24-hour period and then making it, I had to let it set out on my dresser to dry overnight. So
You
my
just tell
room
everybody,
smelled
just
terrible.
don't look at it, don't think about it,
Just
just leave it
walk
there.
by it.
Just leave it there.
But like the reason that I make it so important for people to understand is because they'll go to their doctor and they'll get like a blood draw for their hormone panels, which is great, but they're not going to get that cortisol level like we talked about, because you have to measure your cortisol through different levels of the day because you're
Yeah.
expecting your cortisol to be at different levels of the day. So that's
Yeah.
why this is so important. So I'd love for you to talk on, not just the Dutch test and all the things it can tell you, or dumb that down a little bit because it was a
Yeah.
lot. But also like how the cortisol plays into that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So reason kind of like you, like I prefer a Dutch test over a blood panel. What I had explained to you is like why we should do a Dutch test over getting a blood panel. A blood panel can give you a little bit of insight, but you need to know when you take your blood work, like where in your menstrual cycle you are. Because obviously when you look at reference ranges on hormones for like female testosterone, it's like 6 to 60. And you're like, okay, well, if you're a 12 and you're at the top of like ovulation, a 12 on your testosterone is not optimal. That's not where you want to be, but they're going to tell you it's normal because you're in the reference range somewhere. So that is one piece, is like the reference ranges are so large. Second thing too, that is it only gives you a snapshot of like where your hormones are at that given time in your cycle. It doesn't give you a snapshot of where your hormones are at as a whole. So the way the Dutch test works is when you are metabolizing your sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, you metabolize them and then you pee them out. So when you collect those hormone metabolites in your pee, you're getting a more broad picture of the health of your hormones, rather than just like, what do my hormones look like right now in my cycle, and basically like sticking a pin in it. So it's just going to give you more of like a broad spectrum of how your hormone, like your hormone health is as a whole. That's why I like to use a Dutch panel versus using blood work. If people are willing and able to invest in it, it's just going to give you a lot bigger picture. But where cortisol is going to come into play with all of these is your cortisol is directly related to things like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And for you specifically, is like when you are constantly operating in that like fight or flight state, over time, your body is like, I am so tired. I am sick of fighting. We are just going to like bottom out our cortisol levels, and your cortisol level is just going to be low chronically. And when that happens, first things first, like when your cortisol is chronically elevated, it is going to lead to decreases in testosterone. And when you have an imbalance in testosterone, then it leads to an imbalance in your estrogen. That is then going to lead to an imbalance in your progesterone. And it's kind of like, okay, cortisol is that first domino that falls. And
Mhm.
then testosterone, and then estrogen, and then progesterone. So it's like they all just, the dominoes, it's a big domino effect when you have that poorly managed stress. Is it starts with your stress and then your sex hormones go from there. So it's like if we can start from the top down of managing your stress, then we can address your hormones. If you're just trying to address your hormones and never take the time to address your stress, then those dominoes are just going to keep falling no matter what you try and throw at your body.
Absolutely. And this is like the next best part of you is you like that last pin you took out of me, right? And you're like, we need to eat more. Right.
Yeah.
And that was a really, really hard thing for me to accept. And boy, I think that 6 months was the hardest of my life. But let me just point out, just to give a little bit of background, because this isn't about me, it's going to ultimately be about Kenzie helping you. But I mean, when I came to Kinsey, I was struggling with such terrible gut pain, and my PMS symptoms were so out of control. At like day 27, 25, I would start to get those PMS symptoms, and then they would go until like day 50, day 60 before I would finally get that period, and it would subside again. And I would go through this terrible torture chamber of life for months at a time. And now for the last 6 months, Kens, I've gotten it on like day 23 to day 27. I'm
Let's go.
normal again, right? It's so awesome. So it's like it's going to one take time, and I know that you would definitely agree with that. But as far as people that, because everybody struggles with stress, and I'm actually starting to work with high school students and high school athletes and enough stuff now
Awesome.
too. So I'm trying to help them so that they don't go through what we went through.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're struggling with some of these signs and symptoms that Kenzie's been talking about, what are your top things that you see people doing wrong that we could have takeaways that they could start doing now to help themselves?
One thing I think is obviously we all operate in this like go, go, go society. And we all try to tell ourselves, I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. We all have time. It comes down to making the things that are actually a priority, and getting rid of the things that are not, so that you can make time for yourself. Because if you don't make time to do simple things for yourself, because I know for you, like some of the things that we started with from a stress management standpoint, they don't take you all day. It's not like I'm asking you to sit on the floor and try to meditate for 30 minutes a day. Yeah, I'm like, if you try to get me to do that, you guys all know, like, I am way too hyperactive to sit and try and do that. And I will just sit and laugh the entire time. Like,
Mhm.
that's just how I am. And so making sure that like you are prioritizing the things that help you and not making an excuse of, I don't have time. That is going to be the first thing that you need to get out of your head in terms of like, if you are trying to heal, you need to make some of the things that need to be a priority.
Mhm.
Um, so second thing is like being willing to slow down is a second one. And I will speak from personal experience on this one, because you know how hard it is for me to be able to do that, coming from collegiate athletics and then having to tell myself like, Kenzie, you need to slow down, and recognizing that me working out at a 10 out of 10 intensity every single day doesn't serve me. It's putting my hormones in a terrible spot. And I can feel inflammation on my body. I can feel my next menstrual cycle is going to be absolutely terrible because I've been pounding myself into the ground. So being willing to slow down in certain areas of your life, while it's going to be incredibly uncomfortable, is one of the second best pieces of advice that I can give anybody. Third thing is be willing to fuel your body, because I know this was something that was really hard for you. And it's something that even for myself is like, number one question that I ask people, or that I see when I'm working with people from a hormonal standpoint, is like, I just need to get you fueled. Like, if I can get your body enough calories to be able to allow your hormones to recover, your energy level is going to start to come up. Your sex drive is going to start to come up. Your ability to be able to manage your stress is actually going to start to come down, or is actually going to start to improve, because you're actually feeding your brain with what it needs to be able to function better.
Mhm.
And so being willing to feed yourself and feed yourself good quality food is something that a lot of people really, really struggle with. So if you are someone that is experiencing any of the symptoms that we have talked about and you've been experiencing them for a while, one, you have to be willing to take a step back and make time for yourself. Two, you have to be willing to slow down, because if you are unwilling to slow down, it doesn't matter how you eat, it doesn't matter what you supplement, that stress component is going to take over 9.5 times out of 10. And you have to be willing to fuel your body with good quality foods and good quality ingredients, and enough of those ingredients to actually help to support your hormones and to actually create change.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. I honestly remember, I remember the day I texted you. I was like, okay, Kenzie, I'm hitting 3,000 calories. And I went through my pantry, and this was such a band-aid moment for me. It was like opening this wound that has been a part of me for years. And I went through my pantry, I went through my fridge, and I literally threw away anything on the label that said sugar-free or fat-free on it. And it was hundreds of dollars worth of stuff. And that's
Oh
the
yeah.
other thing too. It's so shelf stable because it's fake that it
Yeah.
lasts forever.
Yeah.
And there was garbage bags full of all the stuff that I had bought and I'd been like just in consuming for so long. Nonetheless, something that I love touching on, and I know that you can touch on it too a little bit better as well, is when you start eating the higher quality whole foods, you can actually intake more calories than before,
Yeah.
but still get a better result purely because your gut health is functioning properly, but your gut actually has to work harder in order to get the nutrients out of it. So you're technically thermal effect of food. And
Yeah.
do you want to touch on some of that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, because the first thing you had mentioned is like you actually being able to consume more food
Hmm.
because you're eating better quality food.
Hmm.
So, kind of like I had mentioned when it comes to like gut symptoms that you might experience with that early satiety, if you're constantly pounding your gut with packaged and processed foods, you have inflammation in your gut. And when you basically, before you even start eating food, your digestion starts. So, like, if I were to literally just like talk endlessly on pancakes and waffles, all of you guys are going to start salivating and thinking that you guys are going to be eating pancakes and waffles here in about 5 minutes. And when that happens is when you start salivating, your body starts dumping digestive enzymes into your mouth. Your body starts dumping digestive enzymes into your gut. Now, the only way that you are actually dumping enough digestive enzymes into your gut is if your stomach's not inflamed, because your digestive enzymes actually come from the lining of your gut. And you need to be able to respond to those signals telling your gut, hey, food is coming. If you do not respond properly to those signals, your gut lining is not going to dump enough digestive enzymes into your stomach. So that means you have maldigestion. Second thing to that is if you're constantly pounding your gut with packaged and processed foods, how many people turn to things like Prilosec and omeprazole? Well, our stomach needs a certain pH to be able to activate our digestive enzymes. So if your stomach is too basic and not acidic enough, you can't actually turn those digestive enzymes on. So then you're not properly digesting your food. That's why you're getting that early satiety, is because it's just going to sit there and it's not going to digest. It's going to take you significantly longer for it to clear your stomach. So when you're eating good quality ingredients and you're reducing that inflammation, you're actually activating your digestive enzymes, your body is better able to digest, absorb, and utilize those nutrients, which is why you're actually able to eat more food, because your gut isn't inflamed. It's able to tolerate more food. It's able to actually digest the food. It's able to actually utilize those nutrients, which is why you're actually able to eat more food when you're eating good quality ingredients, because you're not constantly dumping crap into your body that then causes that inflammation and maldigestion.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. It's so amazing, Kens, how all of it comes together like that. Let's see. What else could we touch on that we haven't? I mean, there's a million things, but I know that I bring back my story into it so many times. I will say too, like if you feel like you're getting better and you go back to old habits, these things will come back. I know that my telltale sign, if I have gone through a stressful time for whatever reason, I will struggle with a little bit of bloat, nothing like before, but I know how to fix it now. But I'll also get the psoriasis on my scalp. They'll
Mhm.
come back. But those are the first two things. And if I get those warning signals, I'm like, whoop, hold
You
the
gotta pull
phone,
back,
back off,
pull back.
back off. So I think that's something to recognize as well, is like with any lifestyle change, this is a lifestyle change,
Yeah.
right? We can still enjoy some of those processed things from time to time, whatever, but we've got to pull back on the stress. And that's something too is I have a lot of people that love doing high intensity every single day, right? Just like we used to, the
Yeah.
CrossFit, the Orange Theory, whatever. Where do you find that happy balance? What's your best recommendation if you want to do some of that? Is it a certain week? Is it not a certain week? Is it a number of days? What do you think?
It's hard. Everybody's a little bit different in terms of like their tolerance for those things. And the best way that like I can describe it to people and help people in that situation. So it doesn't matter if I'm coaching someone on food recommendations, supplement recommendations, lifestyle modifications, things like that. It's like you have to do them for at minimum 3 months before we can either start to taper off of them and start to change anything. And I know that it seems like a long time, but if you're trying to improve your hormones, you're trying to improve your gut health in general, like know that this is going to be a marathon. It's not going to be a sprint. So how we can bring that back into exercise is if you are someone that is chronically either over exercising or doing way too much HIIT exercise, you need to go to a strictly like bro lifting strength training plan where you can do things like more restorative exercise as well, meaning like no high intensity for 3 months.
Hmm.
Like it needs to be straight up either like bro lifting, Pilates, yoga, outdoor walks without a weight vest, and like not listening to podcasts or anything. Like your exercise needs to be more therapeutic and you just working to move your body than anything. And
Hmm.
do that for a solid 3 months. And then what we can do at that point in time is like assess, okay, how does your body feel? Are you feeling better? Do you have less joint pain? Do you feel less inflamed? Are you feeling less bloated? Are you experiencing less digestive symptoms? If the answer is yes, okay, then we're at a point in time where we can start to make some changes. What we're going to do is we're going to add in one 15-minute HIIT cardio session a week for 2, 3 weeks and see how your body tolerates it. If you notice that inflammation starts to come back, you're not ready. And then if you are ready and you feel great, okay, let's add another one, say 2, 3 days apart. But I wouldn't say like if you are someone that struggles with gut health issues, like max 3, 4 days a week if you are doing any HIIT training. But again, that comes down to tolerance. It comes down to number one, your physical fitness level. Like if you and I, having been in the fitness industry for as long as we have, and being as fit physically, we can probably handle a little bit more high intensity exercise than the average person when they are trying to repair hormones, gut health, and those types of things, just because of our conditioning and our ability to recover. And so it depends on person to person, but I typically say follow that 3 month rule and then add them in one at a time and see how your body tolerates it from there.
Absolutely perfect. And that's just something to like, just like nutrition and anything else is there's not a one size fits all.
Mhm.
And that's why I wanted Kinsey to come on and really talk about so many different aspects of this because what worked for me may not work for you. And what worked for MacKenzie may not work for you. It's very much your own fingerprint. And you have to really go at it and be patient and see what works and what doesn't. Um, let's see, we have just a few minutes left. Let's start with what is your biggest suggestion for somebody who feels like they're a little bit lost or biggest takeaway in this department with life? I know it's really broad, but like, what is your best suggestion and advice for someone that's just going through one of these hard times?
Reach out for help because there have been a number of times that I have tried to fix this myself. And I know you can probably attest to this one as well, working in the fitness and nutrition industry, like we know what to do. I just want someone to tell me what to do. And second thing to that is you can go into the lovely Dr. Google machine and type in your symptoms, and it's going to tell you that you have this one thing. Whereas if you don't actually have it and you try to treat it, you can actually make your long-term health and your long-term symptoms worse. So reaching out to someone that knows what to do and knows how they can help you. And for me, it was honestly just being humble enough to reach out for help, knowing that like I know exactly what to do, but I'm going to put my health in somebody else's hands so that they can help me to feel better. And honestly, just tell me what to do because at the end of the day, we all operate a little bit better that way when we have like these walls that we have to live within and someone's telling us where to be, what to do, and when to do it. And so if you are someone that is struggling in this space, one, reach out for help so you get the right direction, but you also get the right amount of support, because there are so many people that will let gut health and hormonal issues get pushed to the side because they're told that it's normal to experience those things. If you know that something is wrong, advocate for yourself, because you can go to your doctor and you can have all the blood work done and you can have it then tell you that it's normal. But if your gut feeling is that something is wrong, I'm willing to bet that there's something wrong. You just have to find
Absolutely.
the right person to find what it is.
Absolutely. It's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's a puzzle. Okay, so what I want you to do is tell them how they can find you the best way to, like I know that you have your link. Are you still doing meetings that way?
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah.
best be like because I can only do so much on my end. I want to make sure that I refer the people I don't know how to help to you. So tell them how to find you.
Yeah, so you go to btofit.com and there is a link under my website, like a drop down menu that says join now. And if you go to the Optimize Your Health Project, you can actually schedule a free 15-minute discovery call directly from that website. So if you are someone that is struggling with any of the things that we have talked about today, we can hop on a free 15-minute discovery call. And essentially, with that discovery call, just figure out like, hey, are we a good fit? Am I actually able to help you? Because as a coach yourself, you understand I may not be the best fit for everybody, and you may not be the best fit for me. So you can actually book a free discovery call directly from my website. And if we are a good fit, then we'll take the reins from there with a consultation call and getting all the blood work and testing and stuff that you need done.
That's absolutely perfect. And so I'll put your website into the notes. If you can just text it to me when we hang out, that'd be
Absolutely.
perfect.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for your incredible knowledge. I always learn something new when I talk to you. So I appreciate it so much. And I'm sure you'll have more people reaching out for sure. So keep making a difference and have a beautiful day, lady.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm incredibly grateful to be here and super excited to help anybody not have to go through what I went through for too many years. So
Absolutely. All right, girl. Well, we'll talk soon. Okay.
awesome. Thank you so much, Nikki.
All right. Bye.